And at least 3 countries now believe the United Kingdom must retaliate against Russia. But my next guest says there are some weapons that should not be used against Moscow. I want to welcome Dewardric McNeal. He's the former Obama administration appointee to the U.S. Department of Defense. He is currently managing director and senior policy analyst at Longview Global Capital, LLC. So welcome, Dewardric. I want to start with Theresa May. Theresa May announced the expulsion of 23 Russian diplomats. Some critics say it didn't go far enough. What more could Theresa May have done?
Well, I think whenever you're trying to address a situation like this, you have what we consider to be visible options to address a situation, and you've seen that as you announced the 23 diplomats that were being expelled. There are also in the toolkit of a state sanctions that can be used to try and address or change another state's behavior, and we can talk about where I think those may be the likely course of action to address this. And then there's some more harder edge, unseen, and clandestine type of actions that a nation state can take. Those are things that are likely never going to be seen by the citizens, and therefore there's this view that nothing is being done when in fact a lot could be being done, but just done in a clandestine manner. One space I think that is extremely concerning for me, where a lot of this activity could take place, is in the cybersecurity space, and it is clear that many states, Russia obviously, we've seen this with North Korea, we've seen it with Iran, certainly the United States. Many states have offensive capability on the cyber side, but I personally believe that this is a dangerous way to pursue things, because cyber is still very much an undefined space that could have very, very severe repercussions for a broader swath of society. So that's always something that I think leaders have to be concerned with. Is society prepared for what could happen if there is an escalatory ladder, for example, on the cyber side?
So I recognize that some of this is incredibly speculative, but since you brought it up, and obviously this is the weapon that you don't think should be used and is incredibly dangerous, if they were to engage in more offensive cyber warfare, what could that mean for everyday Americans, or for that matter, everyday Russians?
Well, again, far be it for me to tell a nation state what to use. My personal view about the cyberspace is that there's an escalatory ladder that I don't believe many private citizens are prepared to really deal with if these sorts of things begin to escalate. Perfect example is what we're dealing with here in America now with respect to Russian intrusions into the U.S. elections. I mean, I don't think most people really understood the degree to which a nation state could cause that level of disruption. And this is just the beginning of what states could do if they really wanted to unleash a cyber style offensive against another country, from closing down banking to electric grids. There's a whole host of things that states could do in a escalatory ladder on the cyber side. So I would much prefer to see sanctions, targeted sanctions against Russia, rather than some of the clandestine things on the cyber side take shape to try and address this. But look, I understand that there's a desperation here to try to bring Russia and other countries. I mean, North Korea, as you will recall, used sarin nerve gas in an airport to kill Kim Jong-nam, the older brother of Kim Jong-un. So this is dangerous behavior, and I am very much concerned about it and the need to address it. I'm just not sure that some of the things that I'm hearing being discussed with respect to cybersecurity, clandestine, or even talk about an Article 5 type response is the way to go on this one.
So you don't think that those are the way to go? You speak about these targeted sanctions. Can you give us any more specifics about what that would be, aside from just expelling more Russian diplomats?
Well, I think access to Western banking and finance, I think Many Russians have investments. Many Russians very close to Putin have investments that are in Western countries. So I think trying to find some sort of sanctions that can tighten the noose around Putin and his crew is the best way to go. Now, again, this is going to be difficult to do because Russia isn't North Korea, isn't Iran. So, we had a very strongly worded statement from Ambassador Haley at the UN, but that statement is largely about rhetorical support because, as you know, with Russia being a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, they would never allow for sanctions, international sanctions, against them to go forward the way they did with Iran and with North Korea. So that would mean that the West, the U.S., Great Britain, France, Germany, etc., would have to pull together to put in place a series of tightening sanctions, access to financial markets, travel. There's a range of things. Now, this is somewhat challenging for Europe because Europe depends in large part on Russian natural gas. Just last year in 2017, natural gas exports to Europe was up 8.1%. Gazprom, a Russian state company, supplies about 40% of the supply to Europe. So I'm not sure what the appetite is even for that when you start to really talk about tightening the screws around Russia in an attempt to change its behavior.
We don't have a lot of time, but I want to make sure to clarify. So is it because Russia has veto power within the United Nations that it could be considered too powerful to effectively punish? Would Russia retaliate? Quick answer.
They will retaliate without question. I think that there are things that can be done. I'm not sure that international sanctions through the UN would be effective at all. The Russians would veto that.
Thank you very much, Dewardric McNeal. Thank you. It's always good to have you.